Hello friends, and welcome to another episode of the Johnbox. Today we're doing a console review of the Supaboy, if you will. It's a portable pocket SNES console, as it's called. It's by Hyperkin, and so we're going to just get right into this. We got a lot of ground to cover today. Now, there is a new version called the Supaboy S that brings about PAL expansion so you can play PAL region games. But this one is just the original Supaboy. Maybe someday I'll review the Supaboy S. Okay, so getting up close and personal with it, I'm just already going to tell you it's not a pocket console. As a matter of fact, I don't even think it's like able to fit in a jacket pocket, like a big hoodie or something. As a matter of fact, this is the least pocketable pocket system I've ever seen. But, however, don't get me wrong, I love the Supaboy for a lot of reasons, so instead of giving it a full console review, we're going to go and do a compatibility test with all the games you see here. This isn't my whole collection, but it's ones that are needed to be marked, because each of them have specific things about them I want to talk about. Okay, so we got a lot of ground to cover and not a lot of time to cover that ground, so let's just go ahead and do this. Oh, before I forget, there is actually AV out, which means you could bring it and put it on your TV, which is kind of cool. The on-off switch, it feels kind of nice. We've got a DC in 5 volt, that's the charging port. Down here we've got volume, an LED to tell you whether it's on or not, so that looks pretty good. You can't really tell it's on whenever I turn it on because of this light. Then we got, of course, the headphone jack. Now, the buttons themselves feel amazing. Feels just like a regular Super Nintendo controller. So that's pretty cool. But, if you don't feel like using the console itself and want to play 2-player, there is actually ports on the front, clearly, to plug in an original controller. Now be wary though, if you want to play 2-player, the console can't be used as player 2 when you have a player 1 controller in, so you have to have 2 controllers to play 2-player no matter what. So now that the system specs are kind of out of the way and all is really said about that, let's just get right on to the games. Okay, so we're going to start with Super Mario Kart. It always gets frozen on this Nintendo logo, so therefore I'm going to consider this not a working game. Unfortunately, that means we cannot play Mario Kart. Another game that randomly doesn't really work is Donkey Kong Country. Now, why I think these two games don't work is actually due to the fact that these are more advanced chips in the cartridges. I'm not going to go into all that, but however, some games that have more advanced graphics in the Super Nintendo use a more sophisticated type of technology to make them work, of course. And therefore, this is not the Supaboy's fault. Of course, it's a clone console even if you consider it nice. So therefore, I can't really be mad about it not being able to play a high-end game like Donkey Kong Country or Mario Kart. Now we're going to go on to a very niche subject, kind of something some people love, some people hate, and that is reproduction cartridges. Now, I only buy from people I know do only original parts before you get mad at me for it. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to do game hacks, as I've got these as clean as they'll go, as usual, and unfortunately, it does not seem to want to boot up like either of my 2 hacks I have for Super Nintendo. Same goes with Zelda Parallel Worlds. It just will not work for whatever reason. When I stick a game that's a reproduction in that's a real game, like Harvest Moon here, then unfortunately it seems to be the only one of the 3 that boot up. Now this actually can play this game, so yeah, I'm sorry about my table, it's a little bit weird. But yeah, as you can see, it does work, and the controls are very responsive, so we're not going to talk about this one anymore. Okay, so at this point, we've done 5 games. Only 1 of them have worked so far, But I'm just going to be here to tell you that most games I own on this list do work. So right now we're going to check out toys. Now I have a personal gripe with this game, so I'm not going to get into it. But to be honest, it does work. So that's another game type that you can see works. It mostly the reason I picked toys in a couple of these are just to show you that a general amount of the games will work. I actually have a bunch more that will work over here, such as Aladdin, that works. Top Gear. Anyways, a lot of them work. But toys, maybe we'll get into this. So this is Raiden Trad. I love this game to death, and it works. This is a really good one. I might have to come back to this. It's kind of like 1942, but for Super Nintendo. What, don't know what 1942 is? You need a history lesson. Street Fighter 2. One of the best fighter games of all time. And of course, happily, it works! Yeah! We finally got a freaking awesome game that's part of like the immediate lineup in the brain that actually works. And believe it or not, it's also just as good as it was on the regular Super Nintendo. Just like all the rest of the games have been. Whenever it works, it seems to actually do very good. It's just finding a few games that don't work that makes it really upsetting. It's kind of weird to play this because I'm actually not able to see, other than the screen capture I'm using to film this. This is weird. Okay, Super Mario World. Does it work? Well, does it? Yes, it does. I really don't want to go through the sequence that boots this one up, so let's just go ahead and not even worry about that. Now, earlier in the video, I talked about how this isn't able to do a lot of the higher-end games. Super Mario RPG probably doesn't work on it, and a lot of games that use better animation probably don't. But trust me, that is a very small percentage of the games on Super Nintendo would fit the qualification I'm talking about. Here's one that I found that's pretty high-end, but still works, and that's Killer Instinct. And, well, it works. So now, we've talked about kind of most of them that I wanted to talk about that are games, but let's go one step farther. Okay, so, we've talked about all the games I wanted to, and most of them worked. As a matter of fact, I tried out 10 games just now. 4 of them didn't work, which is kind of sad ratio, but trust me, most of my collection works. Just those 4 out of the 20-some games I own. I've tested them all at this point, but just not on camera because they weren't as interesting. But this is what I want to talk about. The Super Game Boy. Now, why would I ever want to do this? Mostly I'm doing this as a hypothetical because the Game Boy is already one of the most portable game systems ever. But does it work on Superboy? Well, the answer, my friends, is actually quite shockingly, well, yes. So if you want to play a super bulky Game Boy on a smaller screen than a regular Game Boy, I mean, look, watch this. Like, it's so small. Look at that. That is how small the whole screen is. I'm not even playing around. Like, one finger, and you're almost all the way obscured already. But, it's possible, is what the test here was for. So, technically, you can play the Superboy with the Super Game Boy. Now, a couple other side notes while we're talking about this is that yes, that works, but interestingly enough, because it has the ports it does, it supports the mouse for Super Nintendo. Now, I don't have it right now. Maybe we'll do a follow-up video someday talking about Mario Paint and try it out here on the Superboy. But other than that, I hope you guys have enjoyed my Superboy video. Time to tell you whether I'd recommend it or not. My rating is yes. Okay, it may not be the most perfect console by Hyperkin, because trust me, Hyperkin has done some pretty weird consoles that never worked the right way. I'd say this is their star console. Believe it or not, Superboy and Superboy S are just very well done, and they're something I would recommend through the roof. Go get one if you haven't got one and you're a Super Nintendo fan, because this is the way to play it on the go. I'll catch you all later, and this has been the Johnbox with a console review.